what you're basically having to do is you're starting with a base rate of $40,000, and then you're saying every single year we're going to increase that by 4% a year. Okay? I wish I could tell you there was like a super simple, easy way to do this on the calculator. There isn't. Okay? This is one of those you're going to have to kind of do by hand. Now on Excel, it's a little bit easier. But what I would do is as follows. I would just simply put the 40,000 on the next year and then multiply it by itself plus the 0.04. Okay, so 1.04. So that multiplies it by itself and it adds in the 4%. And so you're going to get 41,600, okay, for year 2. Okay, everybody kosher with that? Yes? Okay, you're going to follow that same procedure, except now you're starting with the 41,600, and it's escalating by the 4%. If you left it in your calculator, you don't have to clear everything out and start all over. You can just kind of continue. Yeah, I don't respond to his name. I respond to my name.
Last 8 weeks. It's 4,000 annually. That's why 1.04.
The 1.04
Yeah,
is
right.
Yeah, it's 4%.
This is the growth rate each year.
4% divided by 4 years.
Okay? So if you apply that 4% growth rate each year, basically for the remaining 4 years, what you're going to see is obviously the lease rate jumps from $40,000 for a year all the way to $46,794.34. Okay? Does that make sense? That part of it?
yeah.
Okay? All right? Because all you're doing, once again, is you're just simply multiplying it by itself, which is 1, and then you're adding to that 1 the 4% growth rate. That's where the 1.04 comes from. Okay? Now, the problem says, okay, what's the present value of all of this? And so we're going to have to put this in as a series of cash flows. Okay, so this is something brand new that we haven't done yet. All right? So, first of all, go ahead, once again, 1 payment per year. All right? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use the cash flow function to calculate. All right? For our initial cash flow at time period 0, we're going to have 0 because nothing is occurring there. The first payment is not received until 1 year out. Okay? So the calculator needs to know that's going to be our first cash flow. Now, on your calculator, third key over, third key down, has CF sub J, cash flow sub J. Now what that means is that basically you're going to be able to put in period cash flows or dollar amounts each year or each month, depending on what the problem is, and then ultimately the calculator will keep track of those. And the beauty of this, of the cash flow versus the payment function, is the payment function assumes constant fixed cash flows. Repeat that. The payment function assumes constant fixed cash flows, whereas the cash flow function allows you to have variable cash flows from 1 year to the next or 1 month to the next, okay? So that it's more realistic. Like for example, you own a property. You know, you may be charging the same amount in rent each month, but expenses could change from 1 month to the next. And so it's very possible at the end of each month and the end of each year, that cash flow is going to be a little bit higher, a little bit lower, a little bit higher, a little bit lower. The cash flow function allows you to put all those in sequence, okay? So, what you're going to do is you're going to put them in just as we've got them written. 40,000 cash flow, 41,600, as a cash flow, 43, 264, 44, 994, 56, and 46, 794, 34 as a cash flow, okay? Now, the next piece is that your discount rate is 13%, so you simply put that in as your interest rate. And now, what you're gonna do is you're simply gonna solve for what is the net present value, okay? Not the present value, but the net present value. And this is underneath the PRC key, okay? Now, I'm gonna go back and explain this in just a second. Right now, let's just go ahead and plug and chug.
You probably. Probably.
In terms of amount, so.
You probably added it. CFJ.
Okay, 150, 955. All right?
Yeah, but just pressing button. It's not like a big-
So let's just do, once again, kind of some simple math on this. All right? All of them are something greater than 40,000, but if we just simply took 40,000 times 5 years, what would that be?
200.
Okay? So 200,000 would be, and then we add in all the extra change, so we probably got another, I don't know, maybe 15 or so $1,000 on top of that with the extra, sort of, well, the amounts above the 40,000. So the point being is, what we're saying is, we've got $200,000 plus of actual dollar revenue, and we're discounting that over that 5-year period at 13% discount rate, and that gives us basically a net present value of 150,000. Now, if those numbers had been constant numbers, like in other words, it had been $40,000 a year for 5 years, we could have just simply used the payment function, okay? But because the numbers are different each year, that's the only reason why we have to use this cash flow function and use the net present value function. Does that make sense? Okay, and we're gonna be doing more of this later, but just right now, just to kind of, that's your first introduction, if you will, to the idea of net present value. Okay, all right? Next one?
$20?
Number 20.
No, thing.
We did 20.
We did?
I believe we did that one, yeah.
25.
I think
We did that one.
We did that one as well.
You did?
Four.
Oh.
Four.
23.
Okay, well, let me do this. Let's just, well,
Mark them off.
mark them off. Okay, so have we done number 1, yes or no?
No.
Yeah, we did.
No.
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 All right, let me just go back to mine.
No.
I have it right.
No, we didn't. We didn't do one. We didn't do one.
Okay, I'm gonna start circling these. So we did A7, we did A12,
A8.
A21, A25, A37, A38, A3, A6, A16, $18 and $11, 20. 28, 32, 8,
Fifteen, 24.
24.
That's the one I missed.
2,
This is part
31.
two. Annuity? Annuity?
This one is the continuing. This one.
Oh, great.
Okay, I think that's
It's
it.
at 8-2.
Okay, it's at 33. Yeah, we can do that. We haven't done it. Okay. So just to help you out, we're going to go through, okay, so just you want to circle the ones that we have done. We've done 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, 16, 18, 20, 21, 24, 25, 28, 31, 32, 37, 38,
And
Okay.
5. And 5.
and 5.
And 8-5?
Yep.
Yeah. It was the first one.
Okay, so what was the one, I'm sorry, 33. 33.
I don't have 20 either. There it is. 28.
Okay. All right, so both of these are annual. All right, so for lease A, we've got payments of 55,000 for 5 years. Discount rate is 12%. Okay, for lease B, the lease payment is 45,000. 5 years. 12%. Oops. Okay, now, this, I'm just, we're doing this from whose perspective? We're doing this from the tenant's perspective or the landlord's perspective?
I think you're doing it from the tenant's perspective. 'Cause you're gonna have to spend.
No, it says, which leases should you accept? So,
So it's probably income as a landlord, which
Yeah.
offer you would accept, no? Well, that's what I want, really.
Well,
No.
if you're spending
No.
$35 in tenancy improvements, then you're a landlord.
Yeah, I would go with your landlord. Okay, so if that's the case, those are cash inflows. This is where it matters, okay? But under the second scenario, you're gonna have to spend 35,000, which is gonna be a cash outflow to you as the landlord, all right? And then now we need to solve for, in this case, we can do this a couple of ways. Okay, we can go ahead and still solve for present value. Let's do that first. All right. Okay, so the present value of the income off of the first lease, 198, 262, 69, okay? Now then, let's ignore the 35,000 for a second, and let's go ahead and calculate the present value of the second lease. And we get 162, $214.92, all right? And so if the assumption is that we're gonna have to pay, as the owner of the property, an additional $35,000, then what does that mean to us? This is the value, in essence, of the income stream, is $162,000, but potentially, if we've got to pay an extra 35 grand,
So you're gonna subtract that 35 grand from 162?
yeah. Which makes me believe that they're actually looking at this from the tenant's perspective, because the numbers are so far away from each other. If we're trying to look at it from that perspective. So we'll go ahead and we'll do it this way.
What?
If it is indeed the landlord's perspective, it's $127,000. So under those circumstances, we would very clearly accept A. Okay? Now, if it were the tenant's perspective, how does that change things?
Well, no.
You had 35,000 to 162.
You would add 35,000 to 162. And you end up with 197, 214. And so, under that circumstance, the tenant would probably accept this one because it's slightly less expensive than the other option, except for the fact that they've got to come up with 35,000 out of pocket. It's a question of how you want to look at it. Okay? All right, moving on. Next one.
I heard 34.
All right. Okay, all of this is annual. All right, and nine payments for 9 years, apparently. We'll draw out 100,000. And it's earning 9% interest. Okay, so it's a two-parter. All right. So, the first part is the actual retirement, which, yeah. Okay, let's show this on the timeline here. Okay, for years 0 through 10, you are going to be making deposits into this of a certain dollar amount each of those years. But then you're going to be withdrawing here 100,000 each year up through basically year 19. Does that make sense? So it's kind of a two-part problem. So the first part is we're solving how much do we need to have in the account here, okay? So in order to do that, $5.99, $5.24, and $69. Okay, and then the second part of the problem is going to be basically taking that, 529, I'm sorry, 599, 524, 69, putting that in as future value, and then solving for equal into the fund. Okay, always 9%, yep. And that's for 10 years. And solve for payment. Okay. So 599, 524, 69, future value, 9% interest rate, 10 years, solve for payment. So the annual payment that you've got to deposit is $39,460.77. So that would be basically that number there. Okay? Make sense? All right. Any others?
We should do 35. Go piggybacking off that one.
Okay. All right, there, the only difference, it's actually a simple one, is you're just gonna change this interest rate from 9% to 6%, and then resolve for payment. And so you're gonna get 45,484.71. Okay? All right. All right, any others? We still got a few left.
40?
Number 40.
With this questions like this, it's better to do two separate
Yes.
equations.
Yep. So let's just draw a timeline for this one. Okay. You've deposited 10,000 into the account here, and it's earning 8%. And you're gonna do that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. At the end of the 5th year, you're gonna obviously take and withdraw 8,000 and put it into an account earning 9%. The original account continues to make 8%. How much will you have in the two accounts at the end of the 9th year? All right, so the way that I would sort of set this up, first of all, let's take the $10,000, put that in as our present value at 8% for 5 years. Find the future value of that. You should get 14,693.28. We subtract out 8,000 from that. We get 6693.28. Okay. So now what we've got is we have 8,000 that's going to be invested for 6, 7, 8, 9, 4 years at 9%. We're going to find the future value for that, and then we're going to have the 6,693.28 invested for 4 more years at the 8%. Solve for future value for that, add those two together, and then we've got our answer.
Oh.
Okay? so the total, 20,000, 398.78. Okay? Make sense? All right. Next one?
39.
Okay, so with this one, once again, annual compounding. So we're gonna start off with 5,000 is in the account as our present value. We want to accumulate 45,000 as our future value after 10 years. And 8% interest. And we are simply gonna be solving for what is the payment that we need to make each of the next 10 years to accomplish that goal. Okay? Okay, so we should end up with 23, 61, 18. Okay? Okay, any others? So we got 15 minutes.
36.
Okay.
You got minus 2,350.
Yeah, I'm
Just
getting
making
sloppy,
sure.
but.
Just
it's-
making sure.
Yeah,
All right.
it's all right, trust me.
Just making sure, that's all.
Okay. All right, this one, 7% is the interest rate. And it's again another double, so we put in $100, present value, $200, future value, and we are simply looking for the amount of time that it's gonna take, so we're gonna be solving for N. So they should be at 10.24 years. Okay? All right, any others?
So for that number, you put plus minus after 100 because
Because there, you're making the assumption that you're spending $100, or you're depositing $100, or you're investing $100, therefore it's a cash outflow, and then the $200 is gonna be a cash inflow, or basically a return of capital. If you put both of them in as positive numbers, the calculator looks at that, that's like money falling from the sky, because there's no basis to calculate a return, because it's all positive. You've got to have a cash outflow in order to have a cash inflow.
We'll do 23.
23.
we did 23. I have 23.
So we did.
I didn't do it.
No, we'll do it quick.
We'll do it again.
Okay, 23,
I have it.
this is yearly, so $5,000 is the payment. 10 years, 14%. And we're just gonna be solving for what is present value. $26,080, 57.58. Okay? Any others?
14?
Good. So, month, 12 monthly payments. $1,000 as the payment, and we're going to go ahead and set this up as begin in mode. And 5 years. Solve for present value to start with. Oop, the interest rate, 12%. Okay. And the other part of that is a sublease, which we'll talk about here, for $1,800. Sold for present value. Okay, all right. So the way that I would interpret this problem is that you have a tenant, they're paying $1,000 a month for the next 5 years. They determine that there's someone that they can sublease it to for $1,800 a month, okay? So obviously that's an extra $800 a month that the tenant is able to just put in their back pocket. Does that make sense, yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so what they're asking for is, well, what is the value, in essence, of that extra $800 a month for the 5 years? Well, by doing what we've just done, all we should have to do is simply take these two numbers, subtract the 45, 404, 59. So the value, if you will, of the leasehold is 36,323.67 is the answer. So in other words, to that tenant, they're pretty much getting 36 grand in terms of the value of that $800 a month for 5 years. Okay? Make sense? All right. What else? 8 more minutes.
What numbers haven't we done with? 17?
Okay.
There you go.
17 it is. Okay, so the first one is monthly. And for 1 year, $50,000. Present value, 6%. And then we're looking at it in terms of future value. And then the second piece of this, I'm sorry, 1 payment per year. For 1 year, $50,000 at 7% what is the future value of it, okay? So, this is what we get. Once again, make sure your calculator's set on, back on in mode. Okay. Okay, so I get 53,083.89 over there. $53,500. Okay, so in this case, they are asking you, which option would you prefer? Well, seems pretty logical to me. I'm probably gonna prefer that one because obviously it generates more in interest, or more in interest accumulation. Okay, all right. Anything else?
Did we do 15?
Okay. Okay, this one's gonna be a cash flow. So very similar to the previous setup with the cash flow, one payment per year. In this case, we're gonna start with a zero cash flow because, once again, we're starting with the end of year one. So 20,000 is a cash flow. 22,000 is a cash flow. 25,000 is a cash flow. 30,000 is a cash flow. And 32,000 as a cash flow. And do that for 15% interest rates. Solve for net present value. Let's see what we get. Yep, 83,526. Okay, and 62 cents. All right, any others?
13.
Okay, once again, this one's gonna be annuity due, so again in mode. $1,500, this is gonna be monthly. $1,500 as our payment. 5 years. 10% discount rate. And simply solve for present value. $71,186.37. Yep.
Every time we see the annuity word on a
Annuity due,
application-
not just annuity by itself, but annuity due.
Oh, annuity due, we have to use the beginning from.
That is correct.
If we're making a payment, over the course of time, and wouldn't this be not like an outflow?
Oh, no, you could put it, I mean,
We can
once
do
again,
it.
I'm getting sloppy, so yes, it should be technically, I'm just trying to
Okay.
minimize the keystrokes. Okay, any others? Is that it? Still got 2 minutes.
9?
Number 9?
Yeah, sure, or 10 actually, do 10 if we have 2 minutes.
Number 10.
For both.
Don't make a
Sounds great.
difference.
All right. Okay, so which is it, 9 or 10?
10.
10, okay. Okay, monthly,
12.
5.75 is our interest rate. 120 is going to be their payment. Okay, and this is 5 years. So we'll be solving for future value to start. So 8318, 83 is the amount that will be accumulated by the end of the 5-year term. But what they're basically asking for is they're looking for this as their down payment, and so they must have 20% of the house price as a down payment. And then, so this is basically saying what price can they afford for the home after saving for 5 years. So this represents what? 20% of the total, yes? So you just simply take this
Divide by 80.
and divide it by,
80. 0.80. You want 80% more than that, right?
we want to know what the total.
Yeah, so you have
It's going to be-
20%, you have 20%, you want the other 80, right?
Okay? All right? Okay, it's officially noon. All right, you have, for those of you that are coming back at 12:30, you've got 29 minutes. So we'll see you back here at 12:30. Yep, the video, yeah.
Today?
As soon as I can. I may actually just try to do it right now.
Do you also come to Tuesdays?